Welcome back, everyone, to our Not to Sell podcast. This is episode 10 of season 6, and our episode today is called Do I Know You? So, introducing myself, I'm Valeria. I'm a student wellness ambassador at the Student Health Center, and I am a business major.
Hi everybody, my name is Jai. I'm a student wellness ambassador and I am a psychology major.
Hi everyone, my name is Andrea. I'm a student wellness ambassador here at Aloni and I also major in biotech and psychology.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalia. I'm a business major here at Aloni and a student wellness ambassador for the Health Center.
Thank you, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about parasocial relationships. It's those one-sided connections we form with people online. Maybe it's a YouTuber you watch for years, a celebrity you defend like a best friend, or a TikToker whose life updates feel personal. Today we're asking how real these connections are and how do they shape our digital health. So to start, we're going to start with a check-in question. Think about the last person you followed online for health advice or emotional support. Do you feel like you know them even though you've never met them?
The last person I followed online for in general or an influencer?
What do you mean, like in general?
Because the last person that I followed in general is Natalia.
Oh, my TikTok.
Well, you know her personally.
Oh, okay.
Like someone you don't know.
You guys go first.
I think maybe it doesn't have to be the last person you follow. Maybe one that stands out. I think for me, this one's
I can share first.
Yeah,
if you guys are still thinking. I don't really follow like influencers or celebrities. I think I did kind of in the past, but not really so much for like health advice. It's kind of just like random people that I'll see on TikTok occasionally, or it'll just be like a random person that I don't even know and I only see like one of their videos. But I did kind of watch this one girl who was a YouTuber kind of back in 2019. The first video that I watched was like a how to shoot your shot thing, and then I was like, oh, like this is interesting. Yeah, like me in like middle school watching this, knowing like I'm not gonna do anything, but I ended up checking out her page and just like seeing her videos. And even though she did like the romance type of stuff, she also talked about just like love in general, and then also like self-worth, those like how to glow up type of things. And I guess she's like the only person I really kind of watched in the past. And I wouldn't say that I know her personally, of course, because of course, people like put on, personas in front of the camera, and you never really know how they truly are off camera, even if they seem like such a genuine person. So I wouldn't say that I feel like I know her or anyone that I follow, but you do kind of get a sense of their personality and their morals and their opinions and everything, but definitely not them fully as a person. And I know people joke about like being friends with a celebrity that they don't know in their head. Have you guys heard that? Where it's like, oh, like if we like met each other, we'd be best friends, or like, we're best friends in my head. And I feel like that's kind of like a lighthearted thing to say, but like some people, they actually do kind of view that person that way. But I think more than anything, it's just about seeing them kind of like as a role model, maybe like an older sister as well. But yeah, for me personally, I wouldn't say that I feel like I know them personally.
I think I can go. One that stands out to me. It's like technically a group of friends, but they're the ones that I like that stand out is just this duo who have been friends since they were early teens. And they like the whole friend group would post just funny videos on YouTube, and then the duo made a podcast called Emergency Intercom, and just having watched their friends growing up, they're much older than me, but just seeing them as young teens, and now they're in their almost late 20s. It's, I don't know, it does it at one point it was a little bit confusing to like I don't know these people. I really don't know these people, but because I've seen them since they were really young, it feels like I do. So that one will stand out to me.
Mm-hmm. I can share. I follow this friends, like they are like best friends, but not like best friend. I don't know. They're like two girls. They're hosting a podcast called Afternoon Girls Club, and they're all like Taiwanese, and their friendship starts, I think, in high school, and then it continues like after they graduate from high school, graduate from university, and then in transition to like when they're working, and then they share like their daily lives and what they consume, like books, movies, everything, and also how they perceive like some little things that happen in their life. For example, like friendship crisis, or like some social issues that happen in Taiwan. And I feel really close to them when I listen to the episode, because I feel that I can pick their brains, and they will share some their views or what they're thinking about that questions. I think I can like relate to that a lot. But then I realized that when I like look them up at the Instagram, like what they post, I feel really distant because they are posting the things that I didn't really familiar with. For example, they watch a lot of animes and I don't have that kind of same interest, which I would be like, oh, okay. So maybe in the way that we are thinking in the same way, but then at the same time they have like different viewpoints of life and then the things that they want to enjoy.
Okay, I can share mine because I finally found something in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
There's this two people. Okay, there's two things. One is a YouTuber. One is like a podcaster, but is also a YouTuber. So the YouTuber, I followed her like ever since I was in high school, like cause her content is really aesthetic. And she like posts about days in my life, and this person, like me, she's an only child, and then she moved to Korea to kind of figure it out life and to like work in Korea. She like talks about and sometimes in like snippets of her vlogs she talks about like her experiences in Korea, and it kind of made me like feel like the same thing, like oh yeah, to moving to a different country is like this feeling. And as an only child, it's kind of hard to like meet people's expectations, blah blah blah. And another thing is this podcaster who's also a YouTuber. She posts about relationship content, self-care content, and like mainly I think her content is kind of like relationships and like um self-care or like self-love, like love in general. So I kind of feel connected with, like, not really connected with her, but like I feel like her content kind of helped me like figure out like what how love really feels like, and like how do I process these things with myself and stuff like that.
Mm. Moving into our discussion, for those who don't know what parasocial relationships are, a parasocial relationship is a psychological bond that forms when an audience member feels a sense of closeness, familiarity, or friendship with a media personality, even though the relationship is not mutual and exists only through screens or media. So some examples to like better understand this dynamic can be like feeling proud of a celebrity you've never met. A lot of fans and stan culture saying we did it when an influencer hits an achievement, and then it can get a little more concerning when like it's like people who watch the same streamer every day like the whole time. Like there's full time streamers now, and like people are watching them the whole time. But they start to feel like they're part of that inner circle, even though they're not. YouTubers or podcast people that they turn on when they feel lonely because their presence feels familiar. So like the example that I gave. And none of these feelings are weird. They're actually built into how these platforms that have these media people work. And the more we see someone's face and hear their voice, the more our brain interprets them as a real friend, real relationship. So to start, knowing what parasocial relationships are, how do you guys think they differ from real life friendships?
I think for me, the one thing that really stands out between the comparison of like real life relationship and parasocial is the connection.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think like the relationship is built with like you guys been through some same experience together. For example, you guys went through the same high school, you guys went through you have like the time that you can enjoy after, maybe after class you go to grocery store and then you chit chat a little bit. But then this only happens in real life relationship, which you're not gonna have like a small conversation with the celebrities through the screen, right? It's mainly more on like you listening one way and then you interpret the meanings, and then maybe you have some connections. You feel that, yeah, I really agree with that, but then it's not like a same time conversation going on.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the difference between parasocial and a real relationship is like you know in a real relationship you really know this person like up and because feel like parasocial, some influencers are just putting out a public image of the
Mm-hmm.
person that they are not. Like some people are kind of open with that, like content creators are open with that, like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna stop this content because I feel like I'm not showing the real me. I feel like I'm just being a fraud on social media or like something like that. So maybe they're kind of like putting a script out there for like, the people that you feel, the podcasters that you feel connected with, and you think like, oh, we think alike. Yeah, well, part of it, but like you don't really know what they are thinking in real time and real person. So I feel like it's kind of hard to connect when it comes to like real relationship, like you or face to face in person, like you're really close with that friend or a group or something like that. You like know what they feel, what they think, their values and principles without a camera and
Mm-hmm.
without like a public act of display or something like that.
The way that I differentiate parasocial relationships to like actual real life relationships is I have like an analogy for this. So it's like a crush versus romantic relationship analogy. So to me, like parasocial relationships kind of seem like having a crush on someone because I don't know if you guys have heard like this thing, it's kind of popular now. But like people just joke that like having a crush is like a lack of information and like you don't sometimes like people another thing is like sometimes people are better as a concept.
Mm-hmm.
So like I don't know. That's like yeah, just two like generic terms that I keep
Mm-hmm.
hearing thrown around and stuff. But it's kind of true because like when you have a crush on someone, you kind of idolize them from afar, and sometimes you only focus on their good qualities, and you don't like you fail to recognize their flaws and things that are like bad about them as well. And again, just like with parasocial relationships, having a crush, sometimes, most times it kind of depends. Usually they don't even know that you exist or like they don't know that you like them. And usually you'll also admire them from far away. And maybe you like don't talk to this person. And maybe you also make, scenarios in your head of like wanting to talk to them and having some sort of relationship, but that doesn't exist in real life. And just like parasocial relationships, when you have a crush, it can become obsessive and unhealthy. There's often like stalking behavior involved, of like tracking their every move. Also, being possessive as well. I know, like, especially within stan culture, this is like such a problem, but with people that are so obsessed with a celebrity, especially romantically, they'll become very possessive of that person, especially if that person has a partner. Like it literally becomes so
Oh my
insane how
god.
people act sometimes. But yeah, and then the more that you start to see that person's true self and their true colors, sometimes you'll recognize that like maybe I don't really like this person, or maybe they're someone else that I didn't think that they were. And then just with like the real life friendships, to me that kind of emulates like a real romantic relationship that you would have with someone, because in romantic committed relationships, it's a two-way thing and both people are sharing mutual feelings for each other. They're investing time and energy into developing the relationship and maintaining the relationship. And then both people, of course, care and love for each other. And there's like a level of mutualism as well because both people are benefiting from the relationship. It's not just a one sided thing where you're like gaining benefit from their existence. And of course, again, there's like communication involved. And it's also important to recognize that it's not always perfect too. That the other person, they have their own flaws. Of course, you learn to accept that as well and love them for it, but you can also call them out when they're doing something that's wrong or doing something that hurts you. And hopefully, the good thing would be that you're able to leave if your boundaries are being overstepped by that person. So that's kind of how I differentiate the parasocial versus like a real relationship.
I guess I can go. I think it's a combination of like what has already been said. Definitely has to like for there to be like a real life friendship or relationship. It has to be like the effort has to be reciprocated. I feel like oftentimes, like I've seen this just like in TikTok comment sections. It's like the user kind of like likes or replies to comments. It's like, oh my god, you replied to me. Oh my gosh, like we're like
a
this.
notice.
Like I
Yeah.
was like, I don't know. But I feel like that anyone can just do that. Like anyone can just. It's just there has to be substantial like. Yeah, I guess effort in it to be real. I don't know how else would like which other way to say it.
Like not putting them on a pedestal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think just like because they're so in the public eye, we kind of like we do put them on a pedestal when they're really just like us as flawed as they're human too. We can't hold them up on a higher pedestal. And then moving on, how have social media and digital platforms made parasocial relationships relationships more common? And then I wrote that humans naturally form emotional bonds with people we see online. Kind of like similar to the comment I made earlier that these platforms work the way they do to also keep us engaged with their platforms, but also the more we do see someone's face and hear their voice, even just like the stories they share. Because I know from the podcast that I was watching, a lot of it because I had seen them since they were very young. It was like when like newer audience were brought in, it's kind of like, oh, like yeah, I do remember that part, but for them, it's something new, and like for me, it's just like, oh no, I was there for the whole.
You're like an OG.
Like I was like, yeah, like I was
Yeah.
an OG, which is scary because I still have to like, I don't have to, I don't struggle with this anymore, but like, for a time I had to be like, I don't know these people. I really don't know these people. They're only sharing what they want me to know, or what they want the public to know. But the science behind it is like our brain interprets it as more as a real relationship, and I think a part that isn't talked about is like how we attach ourselves. Like for me, when I think about the time when I was really invested in the friend group, was like during a time where like maybe I didn't have as many friends or like so like that felt like I was more connected because I felt so comfortable with them and the stories they were sharing.
I think the way that social media and digital platforms have made parasocial relations more common, I'm just reading the question to like understand, is like stan culture. So I think stan culture, I know it's probably existed before, like social media and everything and Wi-Fi and the phones and stuff, but I think it's definitely been popularized by social media because now there's like a whole stand-up culture online with people creating fan pages of people and forming their own little like groups on the internet and stuff. And also, of course, like the internet, it allows people to track celebrities' every moves so much more than in the past. And I think that's just kind of made people a little bit more obsessive with the level of like parasocial relationship that they're having because now there's like no more privacy, where in the past it was more like there's not really a way to stalk them unless like you really have to go to like crazy lengths. And because of that, I feel like people maybe like parasocial relationships, they weren't as strong. But now, since like Valeria mentioned, you're seeing these people every day sometimes, it may change something in your brain to like perceive it as like, oh, this is real, or like I know this person, when really you have no idea who they are off camera. And again, just like there's more access to videos of them and like interviews, so you're seeing their personality and you feel like you know them. I've definitely like been in that situation where I was like a super fan of like the celebrity and I felt like I really know them. Like, oh yeah, like they wouldn't do this or they like this and that. But honestly, like you don't really know who they are as a person when they're not, in front of the camera and everything.
I think another aspect is just like people online in general. Like I've mentioned, like being an OG, like there's always that weird, like it's like a competition online.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah,
flex
it
to
is
know
to like
someone
know
like
someone at
Yeah.
like their very
early.
beginning.
Yeah.
And I've seen so like the links that goes to like a lot of people hate on new people.
Yes.
Like I don't know, you guys were like what do they call them? They're
Like the new
the
fans.
the new gen. It's
Oh
like
yeah, the
there's
whole
been
new gen.
there's
Yeah.
been different examples. Like I know for Fortnite, if you play Fortnite, when they were bringing back, they literally called it OG Fortnite when they rebooted. Like it's like from the really early seasons. They brought it back because a lot of the old players wanted that nostalgia back. But when new players or like more new players who didn't get to experience those more older seasons, it was like a meme to make fun of new people, and they were new
Yeah.
gen players, and there was a bunch of memes. But I think there has to be like a limit to how far the hate or the picking of other people goes. Like there's so many different aspects of like how the like digital media and the platforms kind of contribute to that.
I can go next. um, sorry. Tying back to Natalia said, like, I feel like technology, AI, and like new apps kind of like feel you more connected to like the people. Like, yeah, and especially like the stan culture is kind of uprising right now and kind of like possessive coming from a stan culture. Like, I've experienced stan culture so much. And I mean, I'm kind of stepping back away from the stan culture just because like I'm so busy with a lot of things and like certain apps where like all the standard there they were like kind of pretty much possessive of their idols and like obsessive and stuff and like that kind of like is a bad thing for like people, so I was kind of stepping away. But like with the new current technologies, like new apps, new AIs that makes us feel connected to like our idols or like the people online, I feel like that kind of boosted like the parasocial relationship with others that we don't know. Yeah.
I think to add on that point, I think also like another way to view it is like I think it's really common for people to project themselves on the person that they're like looking for. For example, maybe you're having a bad time or you're like experiencing a low moment that you hope that you can maybe success or in a way that you can pursue the things that you really want to, and then at the time you saw the person online, they achieve everything they have, then you'll be like, "Oh, I really like this person because she's like literally the version I want to live with," like that kind of style. So I think it's also a way that we can be aware of, like maybe that's also a factor of like projecting yourself and projecting the obsessions that you really want to in your life.
There's also kind of the opposite, well, similar concept, but like people who are going through hard times, sometimes they also find other. I think it's more common in like artists. They find other artists who are like talking about very heavy subjects, and maybe they can relate to that, and then they see themselves in that person as well, and then it starts from like having the passion and like the music and the relatability to like feeling that you're emotionally connected to that person because you share similar experiences.
Yeah. And then start from that and then add on the things that we all mentioned, and then it builds on and on and it makes maybe like in a certain time it will like maybe step out of the um it becomes like unhealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Like another question would. Oh wait, no, sorry. Okay, so moving on to our next topic of parasocial relationships and our digital health. So our first one would be, what role do they play in shaping our identity and self-image? Um, do you guys think?
I think to add on like what I just shared, I think they really have like no matter who the person we are like observing or looking at really have a big impact on ourselves because like we put a lot of time on like watching them, either like consuming the message that they're sharing or the things that they want you unconsciously thinking about them. I think that's kind of like how you also get the message and interpret it in yourself, like saying maybe figuring out like why you are so obsessed with the person. Like maybe like I just said, like maybe you want to be like them or maybe you want something from them, like maybe it's an emotional support or like the understanding from, like for example when I'm like watching the YouTube videos, like maybe they're sharing that like a day in my life and I was like, oh yeah, that's like really literally my life. But then in a way that sometimes in my lowest moment I would just like watch and then scroll, like maybe spend more hours on that kind of video just to say yeah, I hope that one day I can be like that. So it's kind of like in between that, having a good like positive relationship and also like negative one.
I think like some examples of this that can play into it, because I know like I see online and I think even from past experiences like the example would be like comparing your life to like a vlogger's perfect day in like their life, like just a regular day, and feeling like you're falling behind or just like because you might be close in range with that person, it's like, oh, they're doing all of these big things, they're going to like these big events and big parties and they're spending this amount of money, and you're not maybe at the place where you want to be financially, emotionally, mentally, and so comparing yourself would be one word like it kind of like affects your self-image, and then another one that kind of ties in is like when I think Natalia mentioned this, like when you become so, not want to say obsessed, but like the
Engrossed.
the huh?
Engrossed.
Oh yeah, engrossed with like a
Person.
personality online, getting upset when they get into a relationship. I think it almost feels like a personal betrayal from them, even though they don't know you and you don't know them. But like a part that I wanted to speak up that kind of like goes to like self-image is like comparing yourself to that new partner in their life. Like of course they wouldn't go for me, like I don't look this way, maybe I don't have the same interests as them, or like even their social status. Going back to like not being in the place you want to be. And then in shaping our identity, especially if you've been like following this media personality for a long time, like you do, I feel like the things that you consume, they do kind of like form the person that you are. But understanding like it could be so easy to for that those lines to blend, especially when it like the things that you consume become a much bigger deal, like your beliefs, your morals, your values, just like recognizing when those start to like kind of consume you. But I think the part that like I think I briefly touched on in one of our last questions was like wanting to like I think like the reasoning for building your personality around like that media that you're consuming and those people that you're following is to like have that sense of feeling that you do belong somewhere. And I briefly mentioned that like for the example that I gave, like for a person that I felt really like attached to was during a time when I wasn't very social and had a hard time making friends. So I feel like because I would, the more I watched them, the more comfort it brought me. But also, I just like I wanted to belong to a community, and I feel like that's the same for a lot of people in like stan culture. It's just like because you guys all idolize this one person or like group of people, it like it can be hard to see when it becomes a problem.
I want to share a personal experience because I have been like in a fandom before, and now I'm starting to like detach, kind of like what Jai said, just like stepping out of that realm because it became so toxic and like it was really draining my energy. And I was like, no, I need to like stop this behavior because it's kind of immature to be having like a certain session, at least the way that I was dealing with it. So yeah, now I'm like focusing more on myself and like real life stuff, you know, things that are actually affecting me. But when I was a part of like this stand-up, it was just very toxic. Going back to Valeria's point of like when the person would be in a relationship with someone, the people within that fandom would heavily like criticize the like lady that the guy was with, and it just became like really weird, like a really weird situation. And I started realizing it just like, even though I kind of did see it in the same way that they did, but then I started to stop myself and I was like, this is getting like way out of hand. And again, like what Valeria said, of feeling like you're in a community, especially because your life is kind of, or your page, fan page, if you guys are familiar with that term, and starts to like revolve around this person, and you're also seeing and interacting with the same people each day, so you kind of form like online friendships within people within those stand-ups, and it does feel like a community, and it can shape your identity, and like you start adopting certain beliefs and mindsets and stuff, and then also like based on the celebrity, because you're seeing so much of them from interviews and videos and everything, you kind of start almost like emulating their personality and maybe their vibe and behavior. And I don't know, it's probably the same within other fandoms, but especially within artist fandoms, they usually have a certain aesthetic to them. It's like a promotional thing. Like each person kind of has their own vibe, aesthetic, whatever. But then the fans kind of turn it into like a certain lifestyle. And it's kind of based off of the music that they make, I find. Like if you're listening to more of like the pop girls, it's more like upbeat. If it's like a rap scheme, it's a little bit like darker. It's just like a totally different lifestyle, you know. And I feel like people may start to act like that or start dressing in a certain style to kind of emulate the community that they're within. And yeah, basically like your whole lifestyle starts to shift. And that's just how I've seen and experienced like being um, shaped by, you know, someone online and within a fandom community.
I could go. I feel like how like it forms your identity and self image is kind of like tying back with what Valeria's have said. Like you kind of compare yourself to that person, especially when that person is the same age as you, or like same age range as you. You feel like, oh, I should be this because this person is achieving this, so I should like have this feeling, or like I should be doing the same thing that this person is doing. Like what am I doing with my life? Like you're questioning your own achievements, you're questioning who you are just because like there's this public figure that shows you what you should be. But yeah.
So I think we briefly touched up on the next questions, but just in case there's anything more to add, when can parasocial relationships be positive or helpful, and when do they become unhealthy and harmful? I think I had a point that I wanted to add, which was, hold on, I'm losing it. We can cut this part out, but it was so good too. What was it?
Like fan?
Oh wait, it was something that you were touching upon. Okay, so I wanted to add that yes, a lot of like I forgot the way you phrased it, but when depending on like the artist or the genre of like maybe a musician, that there's a certain lifestyle. Like I know some artists like they do like sing about personal experiences or this like lifestyle that they kind of like that they kind of promote, and that can like almost be glamorized when or romanticized, and it shouldn't be, especially when it's lot younger audiences who are starting to listen to that kind of music, and they don't recognize like unhealthy and toxic traits and characteristics that are being talked about in music, especially when it comes to love, when it comes to friendships. And so they grow with that in mind, leading to negative behaviors in their own future friendships and relationships. It's just like it's like it's something that I have been like, I don't want to say a victim of, but like as someone who started listening to certain musicians at a very young age, listening to this, like, and seeing how the fandoms were like talk and romanticize that lifestyle that the artist was sharing about during a really dark time in their life. Because at the same time, it could be blurred when it's like, because maybe, yeah, those experiences are relatable, and in a way they almost like acknowledge those experiences that maybe the fandom have been through and maybe haven't shared with another person. So it's like, I'm being seen, like, I'm so like, me and this artist, like, we have been through the same thing. And that kind of also like escalates that parasocial dynamic. But I think there's so much activity talked about, and there's so many artists that I can think of that glamorize certain lifestyles, and it's just unhealthy.
And it's like a part of it is like the people within the fandom, maybe they have experienced those things and it's relatable, but then they turn it into a way that's like, oh, you're cool if you experience that lifestyle. Even though like everyone can kind of acknowledge that lifestyle is unhealthy. And then especially like the younger audiences, when they join the fandom and they're like involved in stuff, then they start to think that it's cool to live that type of lifestyle, even though it's not healthy at all. So I think that was really important that you talked about that, because it's so interesting like how that works. But yeah, what do you guys think?
I could go next. I feel like I feel like I feel like a parasocial relationship can be positive when like the content is kind of like helpful in a way, like giving out like educational, you know, those podcasts where they talk about mental health or like fitness or like health related something like that. I feel like, and they don't kind of bring out like toxic stuff, or like it's mostly like positive vibes and positive light mood content compared to like, because like sometimes, oh my god, there's this one content creator where they have a reality show. I don't get why people love their reality show, because they cuss a lot in front of children. So like people were like trying to comment like, oh, you make my day so light. I'm like, what are you talking about in here? Like, I feel connected with you guys. I'm like, what are you talking about in here, you know? But I feel like when the content is like kind of educational and like positive and helpful to everybody, and I feel like what what do these relationships become unhealthy is when they kind of become a little bit toxic, like I don't know how to word it out, but or like you feel that this person is draining you. The parasocial relationship you have with this person is kind of draining you, or you feel it to yourself like, oh, I'm kind of getting obsessive about this person, so I don't want to like be like this person or something like that.
Something I wanted to add to the kind of point that I made last time, because I don't want to like make this episode seem like stan culture is like bad, but it's just a really perfect example of like, while it can create excitement being part of like a community, it also does blur boundaries. And a good example of this that kind of ties into my point was where like if anyone criticizes that celebrity or that like personality, it almost feels like you're being attacked. And that's when it gets really unhealthy, because I did want to mention, like, I remember seeing like that people do recognize that although like the things that are talked about in like songs, for example, are really bad, but because they're so relatable, people just joke about it. It's like, well, I mean, you know. But it's like important to acknowledge that fun interests start affecting real emotions and real relationships, especially when you start to take what you're like consuming into your personal life. And so if anyone has anything else to add, we can move on to the next topic. Okay, so our last topic is staying grounded and setting boundaries. So how can online creators impact decisions we make in real life? And I can start this because I feel like it's very relevant today, especially for, you know, personalities that you follow for a long time, you feel really closely connected to. start speaking about their own beliefs and like whatever. Like for me, the greatest example would be like current events, and just like what their thoughts and opinions are on what's happening can heavily influence you if you have that really strong parasocial connection to them. And I think it gets really bad when they can start influencing like what actions you take from, especially related to current events, like who you vote on. I know that was a big
Debate.
yeah, a big debate, especially during election seasons. But just like making sure that you stay grounded to your own personal beliefs and that you're not voting or acting on someone else's behalf and you're acting on what you truly believe in.
Yeah, I can. So like tying back to what Valeria said, like people like are trying to influence your decisions. I feel like for me, I follow this one podcast like that kind of talks about like self identity and something like that. I feel like I there was this like one decision that uh that I was really pondering on, and that podcaster kind of influenced my decision on the decision that I made. But in a good way, like in a healthy, in a good way, just because like some I personally love hearing from other people's perspective when it comes to like issues, well, not social issues and like personal issues, personal development. I love hearing from other people even though it contradicts with mine, just because like I get to learn from their own views and I get to incorporate their own views and like balance it out with my thing in it, with my own decision, like kind of educate myself about it. So I feel like putting out their own views and opinions kind of like helps me to create a decision. But like, yeah, just like what Valeria have said, sometimes this people kind of influence you to create choices, to create actions that you yourself does not want, or like you're that is going beyond your principles in life, but you just like feel so connected with this person that you just made that decision. Yeah.
Do you want to share now?
I'm thinking about how to be like engaged in a way, but then still having our critical thinking. Because I think it's really hard and challenge for you to like step out of whatever like the community is, especially when you're like feeling really comfortable to be in that group. I think one tips or like one suggestions would be maybe limit the time that you've been exposed to that. For example, maybe just like cutting down hours or like just intentionally not like being as involved as you used to do, because that way you can have like a maybe like a short period of time that you can have more time to reflect back to yourself and also think about like what really happens or what really matters in your life instead of that like the people that you're looking into or the lifestyle or the artwork that you're like really obsessed with. Yeah.
I think the way that I see it for how like the online creators sorry, I have to like repeat the question to like remember what I'm talking about, but how the online creators can impact the decisions we make in real life. Valeria already mentioned about like the negative lifestyle, so I won't really go into that, but of course certain people that we idolize, they promote sort of like a negative lifestyle, and we can get caught up into that. But I think from personal experience that I've seen, some people will spend a lot of money to be around the person that they idolize. This can be like getting collectibles, concert merch, concert tickets, stuff like that. But they also invest a lot of time and energy into supporting this person, and it becomes almost like a little bit borderline crazy. Like I know some people, this is like a controversial thing, but some people will buy concert tickets to like a bunch of the same artists but like different venues, and there's like a lot of debate about that. But sometimes it gets to a point where it's a little bit obsessive. And also I've noticed that like sometimes it can control your mood. Speaking from experience, like this isn't really parasocial, but like I do have relatives that are very involved in sports, and maybe that's like parasocial, I don't know. But sometimes they'll let the sports team's wins or losses control their mood. And also sometimes they they're only focused on like the game, and if there's another thing happening during the day, they just like won't care. And I think that's when it starts to become a little bit scary to see, like when that becomes your whole life and your whole world, just that thing.
I think something I wanted to add for our audience was just like, because what like an example that like comes to mind in online creators impacting decisions or just our personal life. I know there's like a lot of like humor in making fun of this, but like a lot of podcasts, and their purpose, like I know there's a lot of very, what's the word? Questionable podcasts who promote very questionable and actually very harmful lifestyles, beliefs. Like, it's just crazy. But I think it's very crucial, especially for, audience, if there's parents with children, just like, or even yourself, like monitoring what you're consuming, like actually reflecting on what you're consuming, because it really does affect you and your, your social bubble. But what was the point I was leading to? It's also just like, it really speaks so highly of like how much humans just want to be part of the community. And it should be very significant. Like, I know some of these podcasts are very, very harmful, but question why a lot of these viewers tend to follow that. And it's just like not to judge, but like just take into like consideration what like social problems are happening that make these audiences turn to those kind of podcasts. And I know a lot of us have already shared like how we can stay informed and engaged without losing critical thinking. But some like quick questions you can ask yourself, when you do realize that like the parasocial relationship that you have is starting to affect you. It's just like, reminding yourself influencers are not friends, even if they do feel familiar and they share similar experiences as you. Um, Consider and follow multiple perspectives and not just one trusted voice or opinion. This could be on any aspect of life. And ask yourself, would I defend this person the same way if I didn't feel emotionally attached? And it's okay to love a band, it's okay to love creators or shows, but if a stranger on the internet can completely ruin your day, that's a sign that the boundary lines are getting very blurry. And then I think that wraps up the episode, but we want to just share our note to self podcast to note to self message to everyone. And does anybody want to start?
I can go first. I think my takeaway and note to self message would be aware of the information and all the things that we are consuming daily, because that will heavily impact how we behave, how we think, and how we interpret our life.
I can go next. Know when to kind of pause, or like know when to step back from the know when to step back from the digital media that you consume, or like from that content creator or whoever you follow or feel connected online. Know when to like know the boundaries and know whether it's still good for you or bad for you.
I'd say for me, since we're talking a lot about like influencers and celebrities and stand-up culture, it's totally fine to be a part of that, but just keep yourself in check. Make sure that you don't lose yourself within all of the noise. And also something that I didn't mention, but like the herd mentality. I won't go too much into that because, we're wrapping up and everything. But yeah, I think herd mentality is very strong, especially within those communities. And of course, you want to like consider those opinions and everything, but it's important that you stand your ground and you hold true to like who you are and your opinions.
And then I want to finish the episode off with like, this is not attacking anybody, because this is an issue that a lot of people struggle with and they don't even recognize it. And although they can bring joy, inspiration, and community, they should add to our lives, not replace the real connection and self trust you have with yourself and other people in your real life. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Bye.